with them, just not quite a year. I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you about my family and how we are involved in the Elliott Foundation, and then I'll tell you about the foundation and some of their resources. My husband, Todd, teaches at the pharmacy school. He is a pharmacist and was in sales with a pharmaceutical company for years and years, and then he left that to teach at the pharmacy school, which he loves. But besides having his doctorate in pharmacy, he also has a specialty certification. He's a psychiatric pharmacist. And so at the pharmacy school, he teaches pretty much the psych drugs and some of the neuro things. And then he has a clinical site. Fourth-year pharmacy students do monthly rotations at hospital, retail pharmacies, all the different settings. And so he has a clinical site at Compass, the psychiatric hospital here in Searcy. And 2 students a month, rotate through, spend a month with him in the mornings there, rounding with physicians, talking to patients there about their medications and interactions, the importance of taking those correctly, and then how they just interact with, diet and exercise and things like that, so it will help them. So he's very involved in mental health, and then while he was working at Compass, he saw a need for people who were maybe being discharged there, or maybe people who were getting on disability but didn't really have any insurance yet. Well, they couldn't afford their expensive medicines, even if they maybe just needed them for a month or two, or until they got, some type of help or something. And so he also founded a little charity pharmacy that he calls Highlands Pharmacy, and it is in the Health Resources of Arkansas building by the Wilbur D. Mills campus. And they're usually open 3 afternoons a week, and it's for strictly people who kind of fallen through the cracks and are not insured for some reason, or they're about to be in a month or two, but they need help. And so through donations and from drug companies and local people and stuff like that, they're able to fill psych stuff, not antibiotics and things like that. It's just for their meds for that. And so he has been doing that for 2 years and has really been able to help a lot of people. In fact, he was telling me this week that he was doing his numbers for the end of the year, and he said, I don't understand it. It doesn't add up, because we helped a whole lot more people than what, the money I had coming in. We've actually helped a lot more people than that. And I was like, I don't think that's odd at all. I figure I know where that's coming from. But anyway, so he's been real involved in mental health, was on the board of the Elliott Foundation, and their executive director left last about January, and for a couple months he kept coming home from meetings saying, we have got to find someone for this position, we just got to find the right person. And finally I said, I think it might be me. And I have a journalism degree, I have a part-time photography business, and I've done nonprofit work before, but mental health is totally new to me, even though I was married to someone. So we find it kind of interesting that our kids are grown now, and this is something we're kind of able to work on together and talk about together at night when we get home. So that's been a good thing. So that's a little bit about our background. The Dr. Robert E. Elliott Foundation is actually about 15 years old this month. And we're very fortunate this community has this organization. If you disperse out wherever, I would suggest you find an organization kind of like ours, just to kind of have in your file of people you may need occasionally. But Dr. Robert Elliott was a radiologist here in Searcy, very well-respected doctor, and very much loved by the people that worked for him. He was a radiologist. He was pretty much responsible for bringing mammography to Searcy, which is huge now in healthcare. And he was instrumental in getting CARTI here. This CARTI was the first CARTI to expand outside of the Little Rock facility, which is the cancer treatment center here. And so it keeps people from having to drive to Little Rock long distances for treatments and stuff. So he was very significant in that. He had a wife and 2 children and was very active in his church. He was active in the community. And in January of 2001, it was 15 years this last month, his family lost him to suicide. And so out of their grief, I guess, and desire for family and friends to want to honor him and give back in some way to the community, they founded the Dr. Robert E. Elliott Foundation. I'll just kind of throw out there some of the things we do. We have support groups. One is called Survivors of Suicide, and it meets every month. It's facilitated by a trained person. It's not in any way counseling of any form. It's strictly a support group. I've had counselors call me before saying, you know, look, this person, she's in counseling, she has her counseling and everything, but she just really needs to be, talk with some people who have been through this. And we had a lady call this last month from Jonesboro who actually works in mental health and is a counselor herself, who lost her husband a year ago to suicide, and she said, I need something like this. And there's nothing in the closest place for her from Jonesboro was Memphis, Little Rock, or Searcy. So for our size of community, it's really good that we have this. And we may have 3 or 4 people a month. Some people come right after they've had something happen in their family, and then maybe it's just too soon. They'll wait a year and they'll come back. People just kind of circulate through. But anyway, it's one of the support groups we have. We just started a group called Hope Finders, and Hope Finders is for older teenagers, like 15 to 19-year-olds who are struggling with any type of grief. Maybe they've lost a family member, or maybe their parents have divorced. Just any type of grief that they're struggling with. It's a support group, and it's facilitated by a mental health professional. Like I said, there's not counseling or anything done there, strictly a support group for that age group. We've kind of have had a hard time getting that off the ground. We're still, I think it's probably just, it's hard for a teenager to step out, come to something that they don't really know what it's all about. So we're trying to reach counselors and parents and stuff that maybe can encourage them to come to that, because we feel like there's a big need for it. I will go back to our board. Is made up of a very diverse group here in Searcy. We have several mental health professionals on it, but then also just people who maybe they've had a child that struggled with depression, or maybe they lost a family member to suicide. Some people are just active in the community and want to give back in this way. So our board's very diversified. We're not a Christian organization, but we have several Christians are on our board, and so it's good that we have the foundation here in this community, because it's just not very many communities our size have that. Besides our support groups, we have a monthly seminar, and some of you may be interested in attending this if you have some type of certification. It'll be in June. This is last year's flyer. It will be in June, and we offer 6 hours of continuing education for social workers, counselors, teachers, pharmacists. We're planning and hoping to have nursing this year. We have different topics this last year. One was on spirituality and depression, bullying and depression, drugs of abuse, which is kind of an update on current drugs being abused, everything from what's the stuff instead of cigarettes now they do the
marijuana?
No, not marijuana.
Vapor?
Just the vapor stuff and all that, and how that, and up from there, just new information on all that. Update on the treatment of depression. We have some MDs and pharmacists and PhDs that spoke there. It's $35, and that's really good service to the community. Not a lot of professional people can get 6 hours of continuing ed for $35, plus not have to drive to Little Rock or somewhere. So it's a really good event. If you like our page, the Dr. Robert Elliott Foundation on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter, you'll see these events that are coming up that maybe you wouldn't profit from, but there may be someone on your staff at your church, or some leaders in your church, or something that would benefit by attending some of these things. So I just encourage you to try to follow us and keep up with our information. We give scholarships every year to people who are pursuing a master's degree or higher in mental health field. We do depression screenings throughout the year, like at Day of Caring and other events. We're there to give free depression screenings. We have a resource line that people can call who are maybe just searching counseling groups or just wanting to know about different resources in the area. We call them back and give them information on that. Let's see, we're involved, sometimes schools call us. This last year we spoke to the entire staff at White County Central School District. Their superintendent had us come and do an hour on bullying and an hour on teenage depression and suicide, because she said my staff just doesn't know enough about this. And so we went to a school, spoke to the whole 11th and 12th grade in Beebe because they had a suicide in their school, and the counselor called us and said, we need to provide something for our students. So we try to, when we get calls and requests, we really try to do our best to accommodate people as quickly as we can. So, usually our mental health professionals that are on our board do the speaking for things that are more in depth than what I'm talking about today. Like, I don't really talk on depression and things like that. So I wanted to share, we're funded through, we have a big 5K race, and this year it's going to be April the 2nd. And our sponsors of that race and the people that walk and everything, that provides a lot of our budget. And we get a couple of small grants, maybe occasionally every now and then, to help us with projects. And then there are several people in the community that do support us faithfully. Either they were friends of Dr. Elliott or knew the Elliott family, or a lot of people, they've been touched by this in their own family, and so they want to give to us to help the community. So we're very appreciative of that. People who died of suicide, sometimes their families designate us to receive memorials and things, which is very kind of them, very beneficial to us because it helps us to buy literature and things to get out to the community. So we really appreciate that. I just want to share some statistics with you. They're not too, they don't make you feel real good, but unfortunately, it's just information we need to get out there. Suicide's the 10th leading cause of death in our country. It's over the last 10 years went down just a tiny bit, little bitty bit, but it's stayed pretty much steady. But it's the 10th leading cause of death. Men are more successful in. Sorry, I thought I had that word. Women make more attempts, but men are more successful. I guess they tend to use things like guns and things, and women are a little more timid and use other means, and they aren't as successful. So men are generally more successful, although women make more attempts. Depression affects 20 to 25% of the population. Okay, so we're talking 1 out of 4 people. And 90% of people who die by suicide either have a mental illness or a substance abuse problem.
What was that again?
90% of those who take their life have a mental illness or a substance abuse problem. I have some little bags for you, and in here are some little cards with some little signs of someone being apt to take their life, signs of depression and that type of thing. So we'll have this for you at the end. We have a few population groups that suffer more than others in regard to suicide and depression. And I think this statistic, if you haven't heard it, will just probably wipe you out. But 22 veterans per day die to suicide. Okay, so think about how many lives that is. And then the lives that affects. Spouses and children and parents and all of that. Our youth, 12 to 24-year-olds, there are 5,400 suicide attempts per day in that age group in this country. Okay, And that's just the attempts that are documented, that we know of. I mean, there probably are more attempts. 5,400 per day, 12 to 24 attempt suicide. It's the second leading cause of death with our youth. You can take, I think I read heart problems, AIDS, several other major diseases, and combine them all. And more die to suicide than those things. Now here's an important point, I think, for you guys. 4 out of 5 youth who have given warning signs that they are thinking about taking their life. So 4 out of 5 are giving warning signs. So we have to take the warning signs seriously, know how to look out for that. You may get a mom or dad call you frantically trying to figure out what to do with little Johnny or whatever, and we get calls at the Elliott Foundation like, well, I think he's, we're what, and you start talking and you say, well, then, if they're displaying this, and this, you need to get him to the doctor, you need to get him to the emergency room. Well, I don't know if he'll go. Well, then you just say, you need to call the police. You need to call 911, you need to do whatever you have to do to get them somewhere safe. And then, you can decide where to go from there, because 4 out of 5 kids show warning signs, so we should be on top of that, encouraging families to act on that. Like I said, don't be afraid to call 911. Our teenagers are struggling. The big topics now among our teenagers, bullying and cyberbullying, which I've learned so much about bullying. And Mr. Donnie Lee, who's here at the university, I heard him speak, and he was awesome speaking about bullying, because, a lot of us, and even I, until I started learning more about this, was, I was just kind of brought up, well, you just gotta, that's just part of life, and a lot of us think about bullying as when we were on the playground and some kid tried to kind of push us around, we finally kind of showed them they weren't going to push us around, and we ended up being big buddies, and that was it. But now that's not the case, and with cyberbullying, it's even beyond what we grew up with thinking was even possible. You can't get away from, bullying on the playground you can get away from. Cyberbullying you can't get away from. A lot of times your parents don't know that it's happening. When a 14-year-old girl sees something on social media where someone says, you're so ugly, you should kill yourself. I mean, I couldn't even imagine when I was that age saying that, or someone saying that to me or whatever, but that's the stuff that's going on. It's just very common. We have a little video we show teenagers, and one of the little scenarios on there was a teenage girl living with her grandmother, and she didn't know why. She didn't want to go to school and everything, and she had some mean girls knew she liked a little boy, and they invented an email account that made it look like he was emailing her. Well, then she sent him some inappropriate pictures of herself, which she shouldn't have done. But they took those pictures and then dispersed them to the whole school. And so that's the kind of stuff that can happen. So it's a big topic. And then cutting, that is a major thing. And the first time I heard of that, probably 10 years ago or so, I was like, what? But it is very prevalent. I'm a CASA volunteer as well. A lot of kids that I've represented with CASA, that have come from homes that have struggled and everything, they turn to cutting I just really can't explain it. But anyway, those are just some of the topics that are out there these days. And then how can ministry partner with the mental health community? I think the first thing is, if we could work together to just stop the stigma of going to a counselor, seeking help. I think we've come a long way in the Christian community, but there are still some of those people that I heard a guy say with my CASA volunteering, they had taken a 14-year-old girl in their home to keep her out of the DHS system, which was great and everything. But then she got to where they couldn't handle her, and DHS had to take her, and they said that the girl said she had been asking to see a counselor. She knew she had some problems. She'd been asking to see a counselor. And the man said to us, well, we believe in taking care of that in the church. Okay? So you're just like, okay, well, and I know from a Christian perspective, you know, we all know who the answer is, but, you know, people need more than that. We need to be the hands and feet of Jesus to help get them to people who can help them. And hey, the first thing, I would not send my children to a counselor that wasn't a Christian counselor. You know, and friends, I'll say now, are they a Christian? I mean, that's an important thing because you filter everything through that. But you still need professionals because you're not trained, you know, to be able to take care of everyone in your congregation or whatever. So I feel like this community, because we have the university here and more education, but, you know, some places that's not the case. So just watch your words and attitudes toward mental illness. You know, we joke about things a lot and everything, but then that makes it hard for people when they have an anxiety issue or some kind of mental health issue, you know, to admit it and come forward and stuff because, and I've been guilty of that myself. I wanted to read a quick post to you, and I think this is great, and I think if ministry people could come out and be more open like this, it would do so much for the community. This is, have y'all heard of Jen Hatmaker? Okay, a lot of the women, it's like she's like an author. She's written some books and she speaks at women's events and things like that. And she has a page. And people, anyway, I follow her Facebook page or whatever. But she wrote this on her Facebook page the other day. I have a counseling appointment this afternoon. 3 members of my family are currently in counseling with more to come. May I send a bit of love and encouragement to everyone who steps into counseling or therapeutic space for your own soul, marriage, family, or healing. Ditto to those of you sending your hurt kids. Whether you go for preventive maintenance or because you are hanging on by a thread, I've always said that when Scripture describes gifts of healing, I believe counselors are part of that group. They help us heal, they give us tools, they walk us through recovery, they remind us of our hope. There's nothing weak about being in the care of a counselor. That is strong. That tells me that you are not passively waiting for your strength, your healing. You are doing the work, poking the bear. You are actively working with God and making good use of the gifts He has given someone else to develop us into stronger, healthier people. Bravo, I say. May we grab onto any tool possible as we pursue healthy marriages, healthy kids, and healthy souls. To abuse and suffering and loss and grief and pain and horrible enemy, I say, come at us, bro. We're not going to take this stuff lying down. And I thought, wow, that's so neat that she was vulnerable like that and opened up because it helped other people realize that they can speak about this and find help. Of course, you know, we have here in Searcy, because I refer a lot of people that call us to the counseling center here at the university. And so I would just recommend wherever you go that you kind of fix yourself up a little arsenal of all those things you need to kind of guide people, funnel people in the right direction. And being, you know, Christians, there's usually Christian counselors everywhere. And I would, you know, even non-Christian mental health people will acknowledge the huge part faith plays in someone getting well when they're suffering from something like that. So it's just an important thing, and that's just a way that you can help us big time. You can help us by, you know, promoting things in your church, you know, making people aware of things like the Understanding Depression Seminar, things that would, you know, will help us to get the resources we need and everything to help the community. So hopefully we can work together. I know with all the shootings and all the things going on and everything, you know, there's almost always a mental health dynamic there, and so we're gonna have to all work together for this. Okay, I will. I think that's all I had in my notes, really. But if anybody has any questions or anything, I'll be glad to. Or if there's anything I didn't cover that you might want to mention.
Would you go back and explain CASA? You mentioned you were a volunteer for CASA. I'm not sure that everybody understands that organization. Okay.
It's a great organization too. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. It's a national organization, but Judge Edwards here, who hears all the DHS cases and stuff, chartered our little chapter here in Searcy, but we are people like me, just normal people who are parents or retired teachers. I thought you looked familiar to me. Okay, you know, who want to be an advocate for the child. And so when a child's taken into DHS care, a CASA is appointed, and then you kind of, you know, the caseworkers have like 50 cases, and to try to make sure things aren't falling through the cracks is hard. And so you're kind of an advocate for that child. You visit the child, you make sure they're getting the services that they need. Sometimes it's just, maybe they're gonna move a child from here to here, and maybe you're the one voice with some common sense that says, could we wait 2 weeks so they can finish the semester instead of moving them right now in the middle of school? You know, little things like that that add up to a lot in the life of a child. And you try to visit them a couple times a month. You write a court report, and when they have court and the DHS is making their recommendation, you have your recommendation. And Judge Edwards here, it's different in every part of the state and the country, but he's very, very much depends on CASA's input to help him make decisions, which is a great thing. So anyway, that's what CASA is.
Thanks.
And it stands for Court Appointed Social.
Special
Oh, special.
advocate. Yes. And they have trainings about 4 times a year if people maybe in your congregation or something are interested in. I know our church kind of stepped out saying we want to be more into foster and orphan care, and I guess being a foster parent, I didn't feel at the time was the right fit for me, but I felt like this was a way that I could help, you know, and so it was a good fit for me. So, any other questions about the foundation or resources or resources you think we should offer? Or
Let's suppose these men and women go into a community that has no support group. What should they do? First, second, third?
Well, I think first, if I were just a pastor of a local congregation or something, I would try to find some names of a couple good Christian counselors I could refer people to, first of all. And then, you know, there are some national organizations online like NAMI, and I can't keep all these letters straight. There is a suicide prevention organization. You can order literature and things from them. And one piece of literature that I wish I could have brought all of you one of these. They're $10 a piece, so it's kind of, but we use these in our Survivors of Suicide group, after suicide loss, coping with your grief, and you can order them through that website on that little card I gave you, Spark. It's suicide prevention something. I can't keep them, still learning them all. But anyway, he has one of the, he's already looked at this, but you said was a great tool.
Yes.
And we also have little journals we give people. We provide a lot of this kind of literature too to some of the local funeral homes. So if they have a family come in and they've lost someone to suicide, they give them a folder right away that invites them to our suicide support group and some information. But they receive these at the support group. So you may want to send off and get you one of those kind of just to have in your office.
Do you think that it's appropriate for family members of someone who tried to commit suicide but wasn't successful to do some of this stuff as well?
Yes, I would say so.
So pretty much the same things that someone who actually died.
Mm-hmm. I would say the suicide support group they might want to come to a couple times. There may be some other resources that would be better for them, but I know, you know, dealing with family members with mental illness is a real struggle. I have a sister who's bipolar, and, you know, you have a lot of guilt feelings sometimes because you can't let them live with you or different things.
Right.
And, you know, and even though I can work in this field or whatever, it's just really hard when you're that close, you know, and dealing with it, and their personality changes and things that, you know, plus they have to be responsible for their actions too, even though that, you know, so it's hard and you need support. So even even if that person won't seek a counselor, you know, you might go to counseling, recommend that the family go anyway, just to get help with how they should navigate that.